Now sometimes the samples you collect aren't perfect. So I've got one here that's a good example of what happens when you have a rock that sticks out of the sample. So you can see it's out, it's part of it is in the core and part of it is not. And then the other one I've got here is where you can end up with a root. If they're really, really fine roots, that's okay, you can trim those off. But sometimes if it's a really big root, then the temptation is to go, what do you do about that? So what you should really do is take another sample. I mean, you can clean this one off and make some notes about it. You can clip the roots with the clippers and remove all the soil that's not in the sample and just clip the root at the sample level. The other thing you can do is leave the root in there, and then the lab will need to assess, it's hard to say exactly without pulling it all apart, like how much is in there. So, but if I were to take the sample apart out of the cylinder, put it in the bag, and not make a note about how much root was sticking out of the sample, it'll be computed as being part of this volume, and we don't want that. So option one is to clean it off, clip the root, just leave the root in the sample that would be in that volume, and then follow whatever protocol you're going to follow as far as how you handle those roots, if they're pulled out or not when the analysis is done. Or if you've got a sleeve like this, trim it, leave it sticking out, and leave it in the core, and then again the lab has a better idea of what to do about it. And third, best option is keep it and then do another one, do a duplicate, if you've got the resources and time to do so. The rock starts to become tempting as to, well, I'm just going to rip the rock out and repack it. And that's something you should avoid. I mean, sometimes if you can tell it's just barely, like it falls out and it's just barely on the cusp of being in, then the amount of soil you're replacing is minimal compared with the rest of the sample, and then it's not such a big deal. What I like to do in cases like this is if I'm going to treat it myself, I'll leave it just like this and take pictures. You can also take a Sharpie marker and draw a line about whatever, clean off whatever soil does not belong in your sample here. Try not to get it in the bag. So you've got your soil where it needs to be, and then you can take a Sharpie marker and write around draw around the perimeter when you're not holding it also, and make notes like this part is excluded and the part that's not labeled would be the part that's included. And so there are ways, depending on what this rock looks like, you can estimate how much of that rock volume belongs in the sample and how much does not belong in the sample. Another best option case would be to take another sample. But if you don't do anything and you don't make any notes and you put this whole soil and this rock in this bag, the lab will not know that this stuck out. And so you're going to have a different bulk density than you should have. They won't be accurate. So make notes, take pictures, don't get flies in your ear, and just take your time. And if you have questions about it, take another sample, because it's better to have a better sample that's representative and have quality data than to kind of, pretend. So I just want to point those things out.